Thanksgiving to you. There is no Thanksgiving song. What I mean, you get all jacked up for Christmas, everyone's excited, and then nope, no Christmas song. Like, what are we doing? What could you even have your Christmas song? Like, what are you even going to talk about? Turkey and stuffing and mashed potatoes. I got everything I need. I got gravy and cranberry. Let's talk this out. Let's talk this out. First of all, I hope happy Thanksgiving, and I hope you're watching this while you're making your Thanksgiving dinner. That's my dream. That is my dream. My favorite thing is when you guys reach out to me and tell me the things that you're doing while you're listening to the podcast. That's my favorite. That's my favorite. I've had people tell me sitting in a hammock. I've had people tell me, one dude watching on YouTube in his car, settle down, bro. Settle down, bro. What else? I've had people tell me when they're cooking. If you're chopping wood, guy, I just want a barn so bad, just so I can chop wood, like have the doors open, chopping wood, but a fire going inside, but have speakers in it. Like back in the day, dudes had barns, they didn't have speakers in it. Now you could have a Sonos in there. Can I let you guys in on a little secret? I'm shooting a Christmas special. What? I am. I'm doing my own Christmas special. I don't give a fuck, you guys. I don't give a goddamn fuck. So before we get to that, let's talk a little about Thanksgiving. I hope right now you're making Thanksgiving dinner. Here's the deal. We do a Friendsgiving because family's back home, so all of our friends get together. We've been doing it for, this is getting close to 10 years, I think we've all been doing it. And it fluctuates. Sometimes it's 22 people. Sometimes this year it's going to be 12 of us. This is going to be, 13. 2, 4, 7 kids, 6 adults. It's a great size. I got our friends are hosting. What do we bring in, you guys? My wife makes. Here's the deal. I'm a traditionalist. I like stuff that are like badass. So I'm going to make the stuffing. I make a stuffing every year. Sometimes someone else makes the stuffing. But you know what? I want my goddamn stuffing. And if you're going to a Thanksgiving somewhere else and you want part of your Thanksgiving memories, right, if you will, you got to bring it on your own. So we had a friend that would always make stuffing, but guess what? I want my goddamn stuffing. You know what the key to my stuffing is that you can't do right now because you're probably in the midst of making your stuffing? Bell's Seasoning. Bells. It comes in a little yellow box and it's got like a turkey on it. They've been around since like the 1800s, okay? They're based out of Massachusetts. Okay, Homer. They're based out of Massachusetts, and it's just this type of seasoning. I don't know what it is, but it just makes it for me. And it's simple. It's like onions and celery sauteed in butter, white bread, cubed. You can toast it. You cannot. I'm going to toast this year. Never have before. But mine, it gets real soggy. Not soggy, moist. You use milk. You use milk with this shit. Milk, butter, celery, onions, white bread, Bell seasoning. And I love it to death. It's always moist. But that's why this year I'm going to toast the bread so maybe it's not as much, because it gets like, I'm talking like you're cutting through. You know what I mean? I love it. But, so that's a traditional thing for me. But my wife makes, I'm talking the most white trash dish you've ever had in your life, and I could eat it for months. And it's a broccoli casserole when she uses Velveeta cheese, which is not cheese. If you're buying a cheese that's off a shelf, that's non-refrigerated, I got news for you. That's not a cheese. That's not a cheese. I don't give a fuck. You ever had a Velveeta grilled cheese sandwich? I have one every year. Once a year I have them. You know when? Thanksgiving, because my wife's got the cheese and I got the white bread from the stuffing. And I make myself a grilled cheese late morning, early afternoon before we go to a friend's house for dinner. That's how I do it. Oh, I can't wait. It's in 2 days. For you, it's right now. I cannot wait. So we're going to She makes that, and it's Ritz crackers on top of the broccoli and the cheese and like butter. And there's just something about the combination. It's just unbelievable. Leftover. Oh, just fuck yourself. Okay? It's unreal. Turkey is like the least important thing for me on Thanksgiving. Least. Here's another thing I'm old school with, or white trash about, and whatever. I don't want fancy cranberry sauce. You guys know me. You know me. I'm a fancy guy. I like to do fancy shit, you know? I like stuff to be homemade. I like things to be organic. And not organic like it's going to be organic fresh. I mean like just something that feels real and with a purpose. Cranberry sauce? I want it jellied and out of a can. And I don't care what you put in it. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to me. That's what I want. Because that's what we had as kids, and that's what resonates with me. It brings me back. I don't eat all food because it tastes good, but I do love jellied cranberry sauce, whatever that is. Excuse me. I like to eat sometimes because it is nostalgic to me. You know what I mean? Like, that I love, and it's nostalgic. The Bell's seasoning, nostalgic, and I love. I'm going to make Aunt Little shrimp dip. Everyone's asking me about Auntie Little shrimp dip. I'm making it. Were we told, this is the thing. When you go to a Friendsgiving, everyone brings some stuff. And now this year, it's been like people have been putting limits on how much you can bring. Limits. Don't limit me. Don't even think about it. My wife's making the broccoli casserole. I'm making the Bell's seasoning stuffing. Wife's making bacon wrapped dates. Past app. That's a past app. What am I making? Shrimp dip. Auntie Lil shrimp dip. As basic as it gets. Shrimp, cream cheese, cocktail sauce. Serve it with Ritz. Serve it with Ritz. Was that ever their slogan? Should have been. Serve it with Ritz. Not everything for me needs to be fancy. I want some stuff that's like that old school. That's what we're going to do. I'm sorry, guys. Excuse me. That's disgusting. Here's the deal. Dessert. Our friends are hosting. They're like, listen, we're going to make a pumpkin pie. I love making it. And that's going to be like, we're bringing some s'mores for the kids. And that's going to be it. Someone's making the turkey. Someone's got the mashed potatoes. Someone's got the booze. What else? I'm bringing a custard pie too. I was told not to. But I want a goddamn custard pie on Thanksgiving. Pumpkin pie? Sure. But guess what? I can get a pumpkin pie whenever I want. I could probably get a custard pie whenever I want to, let's be honest. I don't know what it is. Something about custard pie at the holidays, I gotta have it. Will I have a slice of pumpkin pie too? Yes, probably. I'm bringing that custard pie just for me. So, the beauty of a Friendsgiving is don't be mad at me. If I show up with a custard pie, I'm going to bring a custard pie. And I'm going to bring that shrimp dip, even though it wasn't on the list. Turkey doesn't mean anything to me. It really doesn't. Because you know what? It's got to be moist, man. If you get dry turkey, no, I'm sorry. Gravy ain't going to fix it, okay? It's not going to fix it. I don't care what you say. You think it's going to. It's not. It's not going to make any difference. You got dry turkey. You're putting gravy on it. It's not going to, what do you think? It's going to seep in? It's not. Turkeys are tough. What are you going to do? Undercook and you throw your bird back in? All right. It takes a long time. You got to be good at it. No. Throw me a ham, dude. Throw a ham out there on Thanksgiving. Fucking mess with everybody. But hopefully whoever's making the turkey, it's going to be delicious. Either way, stuffing is my number one side. My wife's broccoli, I take it back. That broccoli and cheese casserole is my 1. Stuffing's my 2. Mashed potatoes. But here's the deal. I don't want lumpy mashed potatoes. And I want a little something in them, man. Is there any goat cheese in there? Did you put sour cream in the potatoes? How much butter did you put in there? So I got to trust someone else to make decent mashed potatoes. I know if I go to a restaurant and mashed potatoes are on the with like one of the sides with my dish, you got goat cheese in them? You got garlic. I don't really want garlic mash, but I'll take them. All I'm saying is rosemary mash. All I'm saying is, are you taking it up a notch? This is another thing I'm going to do. When I toast the bread this year for my stuffing, I'm going to clip like 4 branches of rosemary from my bush, and I'm going to have them in the oven the whole time I'm toasting the bread and hope that smell seeps into the bread. Ooh, it'll be faint. It'll be faint. You don't want to get overpowered. Who wants a rosemary stuffing? You don't want to get overpowered by rosemary. You know what I mean? That's what's tough about rosemary. It's not really edible. It's too chewy. The scent, the oils is what you need. That's why you cook with it. If you're ever making a steak, if you like rosemary, if you're ever cooking a steak or any meat or fish, get some sprigs of rosemary, tie them together, and then whatever you're cooking in, the juices, use the rosemary like a brush and brush it on the meat or fish. It will 100% have that little hint of rosemary to it. So we're going to do all that. You know, I've been off booze for like 15 months, and I'm kind of like, oh, man, I wouldn't mind a glass of red wine at Thanksgiving. You know what I mean? Like, what's the big deal? There is no big deal. I could if I want to. And I've been thinking about a lot more than I ever have in the 15 months that I've been off the sauce. September, October, November. What am I talking about? Yeah, 15 months. I don't know. I probably won't. We'll have a fire at our friend's house, put the movie on for the kids later, and we all just hang out. Maybe I can't. We're going to have to drive home. I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you guys are enjoying it today. I'll tell you, this is one thing that I miss about the East Coast or anywhere where there's cold. When we would have Thanksgiving, we had a breezeway, okay? It's the room between the garage and the house. It's called the breezeway. I'm guessing because a breeze will come through there. And it's not insulated and it's not heated. So it's always cold. It was a little warmer than the temp outside, but probably just as cold as what a fridge would be. So my mom would leave. That's where everything would be. You'd have pies in the breezeway. The turkey carcass would go in the breezeway. Anything you didn't have room for in the fridge could just go in the breezeway. And I love that. I love any time you can use something that exists but isn't like its main purpose and use it for something else. Does that make sense? Like, I remember being at my buddy Adrian's engagement party in Pennsylvania, and it was nice out, but snow was everywhere. You know, like there was snow banks. And they were just putting beers in the snow, and you'd step out on the back porch, and everyone's hanging out there, and you just grab a beer. It's the best. You don't need a cooler. You got the snow. The best. Love shit like that. We don't have that out here. It'll get chilly at night, on Thanksgiving, but when we had Thanksgiving as a kid at my grandmother's house, we'd always go to my grandmother's or my aunt's, but I really don't ever remember my aunt's. I just remember my grandmother's, and I remember her sofa, and I remember her chair that she would watch TV and had a little stool. Who's ever using a stool? My Nana always had a stool. There's a chair in the corner, fireplace. And we would go over there and eat around 1 o'clock. And my grandfather had built this phone, like a direct line. I'm looking around for a phone. Like a phone that was mounted on the wall in my Nana's house. And my aunts, her sisters, lived next door. My great-aunt Rue, my great-aunt Gert. And you would my grandfather put this in. You'd pick up the phone, and it was a direct line. It would ring over there, direct line. I don't know. Don't ask. I don't know. He was he was an inventor. That guy was an inventor. And you're like, oh, yeah, what did he invent? Well, he tried to invent the patent to put sound to film. Okay? That's what he tried to do. And he applied for it, and he didn't get it. And if he had, I would not be sitting here talking to you. I wouldn't talk to anybody. I'd be better than the world. But that was one of the coolest things ever. So we'd get there, and we go to my Nana's, and we usually would run over and go see my aunts and check on them, and they'd be making the mashed potatoes. My Aunt Gert always made the mashed potatoes. And she also made bomb Rice Krispie squares. I feel like Rice Krispie squares came out when I was a kid. Did it? Or were they around since Rice Krispies came out, and I'm just, when you're a kid, you get them, so you're like, are these brand new? I think they may have. I think they may have come out when I was a kid. Anyway, people can fuck up Rice Krispie squares, and let me tell you how. Too much space in between. You want compact. You want a very compact Rice Krispie square, but chewy. And that's what Auntie Gert she used to crush it, man. You ever cut into them and they're like dry and no, chewy. But you don't want them so like apart that you like holes everywhere. No. She made the best Rice Krispie squares. And her mashed potatoes. I can't remember what my Aunt Rue used to make, but they would be over there together. So when it was time to get them over and say, hey, the turkey's about ready, we're going to eat, you just pick up the phone. It would ring over there. Hey, you guys ready? And they'd be like, yep. And then one of us would go over and help carry stuff over. And then we'd have this dinner, right? So you'd have the big dinner at the dining room table. In my grandmother's house, it was like dining room table, living room, small house, a ranch, I think they call it. So you'd walk up the steps in the front, come in the living room. Living room went this way, dining room. There was a wall here, but like this was not a wall up top. Into the kitchen, then down a hallway, bedroom, which was an office, bathroom. 3-bedroom, 1 bath, tiny rooms, and then off the kitchen was a porch that my grandfather built, and then in the basement, my grandfather refinished that whole basement, and he had like it was the coolest basement. Like Paul Thomas Anderson, his scene in Boogie Nights when he walks through the party and you follow that trailing camera shot. If you did that at my grandmother's basement back in the day, it was like all carpeted, wood paneling. My grandfather had a TV in the wall, like a flat screen. I mean, it wasn't, it was a tube, but that's essentially what he had made it to be. And like you'd come down the stairs, and then over here there was a couch right next. Like you come down the stairs, and right next to here was a couch with a coffee table. You come out this way, chair, TV in the wall. Over in the corner, round card table. Then like on this wall, a like dresser with like lamps, a big mirror. In front of that, chair, organ. Okay, my grandfather had an organ. And the craziest, weirdest thing I've ever seen in a house that I don't know what they were doing or where this came from, but next to the organ was this wall that was like a bird scene, like a lit, like with lights, like a wall painted like the woods a little bit, but kind of like if you were looking over a pond but no water, like reeds sticking up and stalks with flowers, and they were like birds, actual birds that like came off the wall, and it was all lit. Anyway, his leather recliner was there, the organ was there. Then past the organ over here was a bar my grandfather built in, and then when you come down the stairs, that sofa that was right there, you're sitting in the sofa this way, and right here was the bar over there, but there was this half wall that he put in glass with shelves, and he had decanters with food coloring water in them. So like one was green, one was red, I don't know why. All lit, all backlit. Then he had the bar with like 3 stools, and then he had like all his glassware, of which I have. Hold on. I remember last week I tried to show you guys something, and it looks so ridiculous. But this was like an ice bucket that he had these glasses, one of each one of these. They're all golfing scenes, but they're funny golf takes. Like one guy is getting to the sand trap, and there's a skeleton in the sand trap, and another one's a guy climbing a tree or like gonna blow up a sand trap to get his ball out. Another one is a dog with balls. Anyway, they're supposed to be funny. This was the ice bucket. This was on that shelf, and then he had each one of these was a glass, and then he had these other glasses that I have in my house that looked like a newspaper article that said Bill Reed loses caddy in rough. My grandfather was Bill Reed. Anyway, he had all these glasses and stuff like that. And then his desk was over here. And then like all these like reel-to reels. See that? That was my grandfather's reel-to reels. He had a reel-to reel in his workshop. So you'd shut the door to the workshop, and there was a little tiny square window that you'd pop open, and the reel-to reel would shoot through there. So he could be back in his workshop smoking cigarettes, showing Star Wars on the reel-to-reel, shooting across the whole basement where he had a screen, and we'd all sit on the floor, and he would show movies there. And it was badass. I remember looking back, and you could see through that little window and see him in there smoking butts with the light on. And then behind that, next to that, was a laundry room. Anyway, could you imagine like a Paul Thomas Anderson, like, ba, 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 coming down the stairs like with hors d'oeuvres? Like that was my Nana coming down. I used to love being over their house for parties because they had one kid, and they married when they were. My Nana married my grandfather when she was 40, and had my mom. That's why they were so old when I was like a kid. But they always threw parties, and family was big. They were Italian, and there was always people around. I remember having like a sip of my grandfather's beer, sitting in down the stairs over here. This one chair right there, sitting on his lap. He always wore slacks. He always sat like this. And always had slacks. What's crazy? So like he passed away when I was 5, but his world was intact until I was like 14. I think that's when my grandmother, maybe 15, when my grandmother sold her house and moved in with my aunts. I can't remember. But like his office upstairs was always, she never changed it. His workshop never changed it. I remember like he had this old school train set. We never could find the train. My grandmother sold them eventually, but we found the train tracks and a BB gun like that was up in the rafters that we'd always get out and like, ooh, with the BB gun. And like all his tools, and like we would try and play on his workbench and like do stuff. I would remember trying to like build stuff or do stuff. I had no idea how to do anything, and this was after he'd passed away. And he had a compass in his upstairs in his office, one of those things you put down and you turn like that, not like where's north? A compass, for sketching, because he would, he was like, he tried to be an inventor, tried to put sound to film. He built a camera when he was like 12 years old. So like around here somewhere, it's in that box of stuff from my old office. He had this light meter, like this old light meter that I love because it was his, Anyway, we would go there. How far off the rails did I just go? How far off track, just to bring it back to tell you what we would do at Thanksgiving. So we would eat the big dinner, and it would always be, it was small but big. It was me, my brother, my 2 sisters, my mom, my Nana, and then my Aunt Rue, my Aunt Gert. Sometimes my Aunt Lil would be there. She had like a whole other family in this other town, so sometimes she was there. What's crazy was when I was in high school, I dated this girl who lived like 4 doors down from this family, the McNaughts. And their family, my Aunt Lil, let me go back for a little bit. My Aunt Lil was married to this guy, John Regan. So she was Lillian Reed, became Lillian Regan. He was a fireman. He died. So because everyone in my family was so old, she lived on her own. Whenever I knew her, she never had a husband. Paul was his name. I never met him, never knew. He was dead. So she rented this little apartment in Revere from this family that lived in the house, and they had like another apartment, right? So she became like part of their family. My Aunt Lil was a badass, all right? That's the shrimp dip I make, was Aunt Lil's shrimp dip. So Auntie Lil used to live in this apartment by herself. She did all her laundry by herself. No washing machine. She did all of her laundry in her tub, and they would wring it out by hand and hang it. She had a garden out back. She would sew. She would every morning she would wake up and she would exercise in her bed. Like she would like do. I mean, she wasn't bench pressing. You know what I mean? She wasn't like doing curls or doing thrusts, but she was like moving her legs and shit. And at night she would sit by herself and do Scrabble by herself. And she would complain about still being alive. I'm like, yeah, well, you're still alive because you're still fighting to be alive. She was an amazing person. I loved her so much. As she got older, like she would still take the bus to go to the grocery store. And one time she like had like a dizzy spell or whatever, like when she was 97 and like blacked out and fell. And people, like, she woke up and people there, and there was an ambulance there, and they took her to the hospital. And she was like, she had her groceries, so she was gathering some of her groceries. And she got to the hospital, and the doctor's checking her out, and the doctor was like, he didn't know, like, that she had been coming from the grocery store. And he's like, Lillian, we found a egg in your purse. What's, everything all right? And she's like, what, you don't carry an egg in your purse? Like, she was just that quick. And, like, she had paid for her funeral like when she was 94, like it was paid. she lived to 102, and like when she was like 99, she went to a funeral at that funeral home, and when she was coming in to the funeral, the guy who ran the funeral home was like, "Oh, Lillian, how are you?" And she grabbed him, pulled him close, and she's like, "Bet you never thought you'd see me coming through the front door again." She was that quick. She was awesome. She was just the best. That was my grandfather Reed, the guy who built that, his sister. And there's a story about my Nana was like the sweetest lady of all time, and Auntie Lil was such a badass. All these older women in my life were like the coolest, sweetest, most genuine, real people. I mean, why couldn't they be? You know, they came from a different time. You know, they came from such a different time than we'll ever going to see again, at least for now, until the internet collapses and then we have to go back to survival, which I can't wait for. But what happened was when my grandfather met my Nana, he called his sister, my Aunt Lil, and said, "Hey, I started dating this girl," and he loves Uncle Paul, my Aunt Lil's husband, the firefighter, and he's like, "I'd love to come by with this girl, and I'd like you to meet her." And she was like, "Yeah, come over for dinner." So they had him over for dinner. And when my Aunt Lil came to the door, she looked at my grandmother and she goes, "You?" And my grandmother goes, "You?" And they looked at each other and they said, I guess my Aunt Lil said to her, she's like, "I see you on the bus all the time, and I always look at you and think how beautiful your eyes are." And this one was like, my grandmother was like, "I always see you and think how well dressed you are," or whatever. They were bros. You know, sometimes your brother or your sister's married to someone, you're like, whatever. Yeah, he's all right. No, these two, like, they would talk every day. I remember when my grandmother passed, you know, she was 86 or 88, and Auntie Lil lived, God, I don't know how many years past that. But Auntie Lil used to say to me, she's like, "I miss your grandmother. I used to talk to her every day." And it was just always something cool to me because I always looked at them like sisters because they were my grandmother and my aunt, but they weren't. And they had like this mutual respect. That's the thing. Back then, people met in such a different way. It was organic. It was just different. You observed shit. Do you think anyone today is taking the bus and observing and admiring the way someone looks and looking out for them every day? They're not. They're buried in a phone or an iPad or maybe a book or something like that, whatever. But we just don't. Before, life was the amusement for us. You know what I mean? For people. Life was just the amusement. Now it's other stuff. By the way, sometimes when I post these videos, people write, "Okay, boomer," because of my thing. Hey, guess what? Go fuck yourself. Don't watch my shit and don't listen if you think I'm a boomer or I'm an old man. I don't give fucks. You dumb shit. You have no perspective. And you're like, "Okay, boomer." You don't know dick, you dumb fuck. Jesus Christ. Anyway, the other thing I was going to say is when my grandfather met my grandmother, he was out with a friend, got a flat tire, went up to my grandmother's house, and my grandmother lived with like my Aunt Rue, my Aunt Gert, my Uncle John, my Uncle Ray, like everyone lived at home, and she was there, and I think my Uncle Ray helped my grandfather change a tire. It was the middle of winter. And he went back up to the door when he was done to say, thank him for the help and everything. And my grandmother was there, and he's like, "Hey, I was thinking maybe I could take you out." Like, just saw this woman whose door he just happened to go up. This is how you met women back then. You got a flat tire in the snow, and you walk up to a door to get help, and there's a woman that lives there, and you're like, "Hey, do you want to go out to dinner?" And she says, what my grandmother did say was, "It's in the phone book. Look it up." My grandpa was like, "All right, we can play hard to get." Listen, I got no options. I just broke down in the wintertime and I came up to your door and you were there and I'm asking you out. That's where I'm at. You think it's going to stop me to look up your number in the phone book? It ain't. And that's what he did. That's how people used to meet back then. Crazy. Okay. So after all that, where are we? We're at Thanksgiving at my grandmother's. We would get over to my grandmother's, call my aunts to come over with the mashed potatoes, And you normally be like turkey, mashed potatoes, stuffing, probably green beans, maybe green beans and a tomato sauce. That was like, they were Italian, they would do that. Maybe there was a pasta. There's definitely on Christmas there's a pasta. I don't know if Thanksgiving. And what else? Maybe a squash, baked mushrooms. My Nana would make baked mushrooms, which I loved. You know, her gravy. She'd make a gravy. I never really cared about gravy. The canned cranberry sauce, whatever we'd eat. After we ate, all the kids would go watch TV in that living room. And it would be like, I don't know if it was Thanksgiving Day parade. You only had 3 channels. 4, 5, or 7. Whatever. Somebody would be sitting on the couch, maybe laying on the couch, in the chair, in Nana's chair, laying on the floor. I remember, like, I don't know if this was a holiday or just a Sunday dinner we were having over there, but falling asleep on the floor and waking up, my arm was asleep. You'd fall asleep. You'd wake up around 4. You know, we ate at 1, probably finished at 2. You always had to sit at that damn table. You think you're getting up at my mom's table? Not a chance. You're sitting there till everyone's done. Then we'd go, we'd lay down, watch TV, sit down, and you'd eventually fall asleep. And you'd wake up, and it'd be warm in there. You get all these old people. It's warm. And you'd look around, and your brother would be asleep on the couch, and your sister would be asleep in the chair. Your oldest sister maybe is downstairs in the basement, like listening to music or whatever. And over at the dining room table, all the plates have been cleaned. Now there's a platter out with cut turkey, ham, cheese, mustard's in a dish with a spoon, mayo's in a dish with a spoon. This is all China, by the way. It's the China, okay? There's pickles out. There's chips probably. Then the stuffing, all the leftovers, but also everything to make sandwiches. Rolls, like beautiful rolls. And this was the point of the day, of the holiday, when you didn't have to, there was no, it wasn't formal at this point. China and silver for sure. You got to understand who we're dealing with. I got my grandmother and my 2 great aunts. My great aunts, and maybe 3 great aunts if Auntie Lil's there. 2 of the great aunts never got married. My Nana was married at 40, and her husband died when he was 72, I think. So my mom was 32. She had me at 27. I was, I think that's right. He died when I was 5, so that makes sense. So now she doesn't have anyone. She's never going to marry again. So she's in her 70s, and she's going to live till her 80s. And then her sister-in-law, whose husband's dead, she's living to 102. This is all they got. You know what I mean? You don't do fancy meals with a husband or family. She had 1 kid. Auntie Lil had no kids. Auntie Rue and Auntie Gert, no husband, no kids. This was it. You got out to China for Thanksgiving. You should. We should all get out to China for Thanksgiving. We should get out to China for a fancy meal once a month. We should get out to China for birthdays. Celebrate. Make it special. Like you could take any meal or situation and make it special because you decided to. We do that with the kids once in a while. I'll put out the china. Not the china. We don't even have china. I'll put out the silver. We have my wife's grandmother's silver, and it's plated, but I love it. It's super cool. It's like Art Deco, probably from the 50s. Beautiful. And I'll put those out, and I'll put out cloth napkins, and I'll put out candlelight. And the kid's like, what's so fancy? I'm like, we're having a nice meal. You got a cloth napkin. Fucking use it. And use your goddamn fork. And that would be what you'd wake up to. And someone would still be sleeping. You'd come over and you'd sit on your grandmother's lap, or you'd sit in the chair next to your grandmother or my aunt. And you'd be like, will you scratch my back? We used to ask to get our back scratched all the time. And they'd scratch our back. I deliberately scratch my kids' backs because I want them to get their back scratched the way we did. Like my Aunt Lil used to show up at our house for Christmas. And it'd be like everyone would be in the living room, fire going, enjoying the night. And I'd sit down next to my Aunt Lil, like, Auntie Lil, will you scratch my back? And we just sit up like this in a room. I'm talking 14, 10, 11, 12, 16. Auntie Lil, will you scratch my back? And she just sit there, just so soft, her fingernails scratching your back. It was the fucking best, dude. That's what family was for us. So you'd wake up and you go over and you'd make like a ham and cheese sandwich, or they would make it for you. What do you want, hon? And they'd make you a sandwich and sit there with some chips, and you'd like watch everyone. You just sit there and listen to them talk. You didn't care. There was nothing. You didn't want to be anywhere else in the world but right there. You had everyone who meant anything to you. You had, it was before girlfriends for me, and I had friends, but you didn't give a shit about what your friends were doing on Thanksgiving when you were 10. Whatever. As we got older, we'd have Thanksgiving sometimes at our house. We had like the major holidays: Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's. So normally it would be like if Thanksgiving was at my grandmother's, then Christmas Eve would be at our house, Christmas Day would be at my grandmother's, New Year's Eve would be at our house. And we'd always do baked stuffed shrimp for Christmas Eve, and then a ham on Christmas Day, and then New Year's Eve we always did Chinese food. And that was super low key, but it was just family. We'd always be together. There would be no question that we were going to go get my grandmother and she was going to come over the house. Like, no question. As they got older, as everyone got older, we go pick them up, bring them there. Auntie Lil lived further away, so sometimes those people who lived in my town that I never even said this. So I'm so sorry, guys, that I jump all over the place. But my Aunt Lil, I was mentioning earlier that when I was dating this girl in high school, there were these people that lived in the street that knew my grandmother. I told you she lived in the apartment in front of this house. That was the family. She became a part of their family. And one of the branches of her family lived in this house four doors down from my girlfriend. So one Christmas, I was going to go pick up, Auntie Lil was going to be at their house, and I was going to pick her up and then bring her to our house. And I would go see my girlfriend in between. And I remember like going to pick her up at like 6:30, and she's sitting in a chair in the living room, and all the kids from this family are kneeling down around her, waiting for her to open the gift that they got for her. And I was like, what is, like, they love her. And I remember like looking, like I knew one of the moms. I was like, hey, and they knew like she was my blood aunt. She wasn't even related to them. And we loved Auntie Lil. She was so dope. She lived by herself. She would take you into Boston on the train. And I remember getting a Sprite can radio. It was like a radio, like looked like a Sprite can. And she bought it for me. And like because like we would always spend weekends at my nana's or my aunt's. But if you spent a weekend at Auntie Lil's, you're balling. And I remember just like seeing her with all those kids around her and just being like, wow, how special is she? Like I'm pretty sure I got a little teary-eyed. This was in high school, and just looking at her being like, that's my Aunt Lil. But to them, they call her Auntie Lil too. And I didn't know any of these kids. I knew one girl, Geraldine, and then the rest of the family I didn't know. And I didn't even know that she knew my Aunt Lil like that. Anyway, it's pretty cool. That was Thanksgiving. Guys, how long do you think I just talked about Thanksgiving? 40 minutes about Thanksgiving. But that's what it should be. It's Thanksgiving. I think I've said it before, and I mentioned the shrimp dip before, and I told you I'm going to do it for Thanksgiving. But I also said, before I just went off for 40 minutes about Thanksgiving, that I was going to shoot and make a Christmas special, which I am. I am going to make a gingerbread house on this Christmas special, but not just any gingerbread house. I'm going to make a mid-century modern gingerbread house that my friend who's an architect is designing the plans for. I'm going to make Auntie Lil's shrimp dip. So if you're like, man, I want Auntie Lil's shrimp dip, hold tight. I will show you how to make it. It's super easy, and you can make it for Christmas this year. I'm going to make some holiday cocktails with my buddy Travis. Holiday eggnog. I'm going to have some Christmas memories from some of my favorite comedians, Nick Thune, Dan Soder, Lara Beats, Jesus Trejo. I'm going to have a musical guest, Suzanne Santo, and potentially some others. I'm going to make a wreath. I'm going to show you how to make a dope place setting. I'm going to... What else? I think that's it. Music. I'm going to go over holiday music, and I'm going to go over some holiday decorating tips and how you can go buy stuff. I'm going to shoot on location at a record store. I'm going to shoot on location, hopefully, at a vintage shop. And it's going to be pretty dope, and I'm really excited about it. It's something fun. It's like, as much as I say I hate technology and I hate, like, how quick everything moves, I can go make a special like that with people I know and people who have on cheap because the gear is so good. So I'm going to do that. I've said this before. I'm going to say it right now. When my Aunt Lil used to show up at our house, like she would get there, she'd either come to the front door into the living room where the fire would be going, or to the breezeway where we keep all that food because we didn't have enough room in the fridge. And she would bring that shrimp dip, and she'd bring it in a big container. And someone's job always, when Auntie Lil got there, or Auntie Rue, Auntie Gert, anyone who's older or in the family, you'd go to the door, you would take their coat, you'd go put it in my sister Courtney's room or my sister Kristen's room or my room, whoever, first floor bedroom, on the bed. Those are those big, like, old lady coats, with, like, tissue stuffed down the sleeve. But Auntie Lil would come with that shrimp dip, and it'd be in a big container. Somebody would take her coat, and somebody else would take that dip. And if you took that dip, your responsibility was to scoop that dip out into a bowl that was going to go on a serving plate with crackers around it. Straight up Ritz crackers. There's no other cracker you're serving with that dip. You don't need to fancy it up. You don't need to do anything. That is the perfect taste combination. A Ritz cracker and the shrimp dip. That's it. There's nothing else that is needed. But here's the deal. There would always be a little extra of that shrimp dip. And as soon as that shrimp dip goes out, it is going to get crushed. It's not going to last long. It is not lasting long. So what I would do is I would put it in the serving bowl, and there'd be the leftover. And before I put the dip, this is what I would do. I put it in that bowl, then there'd be leftover. I put the crackers around the thing, and I go put it out in the kitchen. In the living room. I'd go back to the kitchen where the leftover shrimp dip was and grab Ritz crackers, and I would house like 7 Ritz crackers with shrimp dip of the excess stuff. Because I knew, get your shrimp dip in now, and then you get back into like the community dip. I hit this up, no leftovers. Boom, I hit the community dip. It's just, why wouldn't you? You know what I mean? You want to eat your solid dip. I can't wait for that dip on Thursday. Oh, my God. I'm sure you guys have amazing things that you have in your family, too. And when I put a post up for this, I'm going to put tag like some of your favorite dishes below. Here's the deal, you guys. Instagram is where I am mainly. I just don't check Facebook. It's too much. There's too much going on. Instagram is so simple. You have photos. I look at yours. You look at mine. I put up videos. I can put up a picture of my dates. Facebook, it's got all this stuff. You're going through what's on your page. It's too much. I know I got to get better at it. Maybe I'll make that as a New Year's resolution. Don't you think I'm fucking stoked to do a New Year's resolution episode with you guys? Yeah, big time. Because I got to find out where the hell I have them. I have all my New Year's resolutions from years past. Years past. What am I, a ghost? Anyway. I don't even, you know what? So this happened today. This is something else I want to talk to you guys about. And I say that, but I really do. It's kind of weird. I'm alone in a garage talking to a camera, but I share this with you guys because I feel like you care. So there's this dude that works at the grocery store down the street from me. He's deaf, okay? He's a tall man, big dude, black guy, deaf. And he's always the nicest fucking dude. Like, he has this thing about him. Not just nice, but like a softness. Even though he's a big dude. Tall, big features. And I'm like, he always has this like niceness. And I've heard so many people ask him questions, and he always just tells them, hey, I'm deaf. Like, I don't know what you're saying. And I've seen people get frustrated. Like, well, why the fuck's this guy working here if he's deaf? I've seen people like brush him off. I've seen other people like, oh, thank you. You know, not all negative. But he's always so sweet. And I've like gone out of my way to ask him to help me with stuff, because I would sit there because he could hear a little bit. You feel like he can understand maybe lips or whatever. So I don't know if it was last year. I think it was last year. I wrote him a Christmas card. Maybe it was 2 years ago. I can't remember which year. But like, the guy moves me. You know, like he moves me, makes me want to be a better person. I don't know what it is. I just had this thing. I'm like, and I got wrapped up in it. Like, oh, am I just writing him a Christmas card because he's deaf and you feel bad? Does he think I'm sympathetic for him and he doesn't want? And you know what I said? I said, I don't give a fuck. Get over it, Jay. I like the man, and I want him to have a happy Christmas. I don't know. I can't talk to him. You know what I mean? Like, I can't. I've tried. And I don't speak sign language. And I was like, you know what? No. I just want... I don't know who tells him or who his family is. I don't know where he goes. I don't know where anyone goes. But I'm just like, you know what? I want him to know that for Christmas, I want to write him a card and tell him how much I appreciate who he is and what he is. And I gave him the card. So I went in there and I gave him the card while I was shopping. And he came over to me a little while later, teary-eyed, and said, thank you. And then gave me a piece of paper and he said, do you have Facebook or an email? And I was like, yes. I was like, oh, yes. And he never wrote me. I gave him my Facebook and I gave him my email and he never wrote me. And I swear to you, I have not seen him in that grocery store in at least a year. Now, we sometimes go to different grocery stores. There's like 3 that we alternate between, and I tend to go to this other one more than that one. But today I went to that one, and I saw him. And I think he saw me. I don't know if he remembered me, but I think he saw me, and then he kind of like avoided me, so I kind of, I followed him. And I just went up to him, and I go, hey! And he looked at me and goes, hey. I go, happy holidays. And he's like, oh, happy holidays. And then I left. And I didn't think anything past it. I don't know, kind of wanted to share that. I'm probably judging way too much on this guy of like what his world is. You know what I mean? Obviously, it's a quiet one. You know what I mean? It's a quiet world because he's deaf. So like there's not sounds in his head, or maybe he hears sounds in a way that like we could never, of course. But what I mean is I don't know what his brain is on a typical day or who he interacts with or what his life is on a typical day. But when I see him, there's something inside me that makes me want to like reach to him, you know? And when I saw him today, I feel like old me, because there's definitely an old me. And that's like year and a half ago. Yeah, like year and a half ago me would have like, I don't know, made it out to be too much or like worried. Like I used to like back in like a year and a half and before, the idea of wanting to write him a card, I would think I was being phony, you know? I don't know why, because I don't know him. You know, like for me, it's always tough to like, if there's someone I don't know or there's someone who's famous, I'm like, I don't know that guy. Why am I going to just start talking to him? Like we'd have to meet organically. And I just always let everything happen organically. And then I just got to a point, I'm like, you're not being fake, man. You can't just assume that everyone that does something really cool or is doing something cool just was born that way. You know what I mean? Like, you ever see a piece of clothing or a car or a motorcycle or a haircut or glasses and been like, well, I can't have that. I'm not that cool. No one is. Fucking everyone is just an idiot. They just decide, you know what? I like that. I'm going to wear that. I am whatever that is because I chose it, you know? And that's kind of like what I started doing like a year and a half ago. And so today when I saw him, I was able to just walk right up to him and be like, hey, man, happy holidays. There was nothing in me that was like, oh, I wish I had heard from you, or why didn't I hear from you, or like, why am I saying happy holidays? It was just like, hey, man, you know how much I like you. I'm saying happy holidays because I like you. Anyway, I'll be doing a lot of food shopping for the Christmas special and for Christmas. Merry Christmas to you. Like, what would our Thanksgiving song be? You know what I mean? Happy Thanksgiving. to nope. Turkey and the mashed potato, stuffing and cranberry sauce. Anyway, you guys, if you're watching or if you're listening today on Thanksgiving, thank you for taking time out of your day to share it with me. And if this is another day, thank you for not taking time away from whatever it was that you were doing on Thanksgiving and saving that time to be with me. I love having you guys in my life. Oh, man, a couple people reach out to me for nicknames for Thruliners or Thrusters, like truth tellers. We'll find something there. But it doesn't concern me right now. All that concerns me is that you have a great Thanksgiving. You appreciate what you got. Don't worry about the things you don't have. Look around the table today or next time you have around a table of loved ones and just look at everyone around you and be like, God damn, fucking yes. It's my family. Whether you love them or not, whether you can stand them or not, they're yours. And I appreciate all you guys listening. And have a great Thanksgiving, and I'll talk to you next week. And I'll keep you updated on the Christmas special. Merry Christmas to you. Happy Thanksgiving.